Yeah, I'm from Anne Thorne Architects, and we've been, we started in 1991, and we've been sort of very much working around in this area of kind of green building and community-based projects. I'm also Deputy Chair of the AECB, as Bryn said, which is the Association for Environment Conscious Building. And the AECB was also sort of the parent organisation of the Passive House Trust. And so our interest has always been both around energy and around natural materials, and around a more kind of humane way to both design and build buildings. What I was really interested in, I know that you're a real sort of mix of backgrounds, and I think some of you are architects and some of you not, but can I get an idea of how many of you have done some kind of natural materials building, or other building for that matter, yourselves? So you're a very practical bunch. How many of you have done straw bale building? Would you like to just tell us a little bit about what sort of project did you work on? Sorry, I'm being a bit random, but yeah, just give us a bit of an idea of the kinds of things that you've done.
Sure, yes. We've recently established in the last 2 or 3 years a straw bale building company based in Dorset.
Oh, right.
And so we were set up, and we specialise principally in load-bearing straw bale building. And we have very much a community ethos and want to build and work with communities. And we've done community buildings, working with local councils, different things, and also work on domestic dwellings as well, and that sort of thing. It's part of us, again, like a lot of things we've seen, it's part of a more of a holistic approach, but we try to use natural materials, local natural materials, wherever possible.
And somebody else?
Fran, can I just interject?
Just to get a bit of a range, really.
Can we check that when someone speaks from the audience that everyone else hears? Because we hear well up here with them projecting their voice this way, but they don't necessarily.
Good point.
Did you all hear that answer? You have got quite a loud voice, so I suspect everyone did.
Is there someone else who can tell us about a different kind of project that you hands up? Straw bale people? Somebody over here? Yes. Shout out.
Myself and my sisters built our own house out of straw bales.
Was that load-bearing construction as well? Yeah. Has anybody worked in non-load-bearing straw bale construction? Do you want to just tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I worked. I volunteered on one of Ben Law's projects that was straw bale infill.
Right. Any other completely different kinds of straw bale work? Roofs, or I saw there was a really interesting sort of straw bale roof. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a bin roofer. We actually recently we've had a roof from the Midwest, and where to a straw bale green roof, you plant above a layer of straw, giving you higher thermal mass.
Great. Okay, and I know that you've also done those of you done sort of rammed earth and clay and so on. So I wanted to just sort of, because I'm going to talk about a specific project, but obviously our practice at the moment we've got a big kind of co-housing project on. We're doing community, stuff, and we're really based in London. So I sort of said in my initial thing that it was about kind of pleasurable contradictions, and I thought actually that's not true. It's about pleasures and kind of contradictions. The contradictions are obviously that building one-off houses in the country is not the kind of first way that we would be thinking about looking for more sustainable communities, and our practice has really been sort of very focused around community-based projects. But one-off houses do give you, as a practice, they give you an opportunity to really explore things, and if you're building it's your own house, then you've got even more opportunity, because you can sort of let things go wrong, and hopefully, and we can learn from what you've achieved. So that's how I kind of got involved in this this project, which was for myself and my family. And the pleasures obviously are that I took it as an opportunity really to work with all the people that I'd grown to know over my years of practice, and so it was very enjoyable working together. It's straw bale building, like most forms of building together, if you can allow it to be, is really good fun. And that we were working in Norfolk, which is where I've spent a lot of my life since I was a child, and these traditional materials of thatch are, really just lovely to be able to work with. We did the first straw bale project we did, which is like this one that I'm going to talk more about. This one was with Strawworks. I don't know if any of you've worked with Barbara Jones. This is a building in Lordship Wreck, which is a little park just near Broadwater Farm Estate in Tottenham. And the brief from the amazing Friends group there was to build in straw bale, because they wanted people around the park to be involved in doing the building. And they were involved in doing that. And it was quite amazing to see this. It was a big park regeneration, so there was a very big contractor. And it was really quite amazing to see how, when the timber frame was up and the roof was on, and these teams of local people came and worked over a period of about a month in week sessions with Strawworks, how the atmosphere on site changed and how many more people came along and asked what was going on, and how much they really got out of doing it, including one of the gardeners on the park. And in fact, the project, so we started with knowing it was going to be a straw bale project, but we didn't know lot size or shape or what the building was for. And there was a long process of participation in design as well. And that's something that we've really prioritised over our time of working. And we found that enabling people to really contribute to the design process can be a really creative process, and that it can take projects off in directions that you really wouldn't have thought about or anticipated, and can really sort of provide very different and innovative solutions to quite problems which are sometimes solved in rather maybe dull ways. So both the designing and the building of this project were done with a large kind of shaggy group of people. And what's really nice now is to see how that building is really used by those people, and the fact that they were involved with it from the very beginning has meant that the building has not been vandalised, although it's in the centre of a quite tough area in London, in the middle of a park. So great project. Anyway, when it was completed, we had this really interesting experience where it was an open day and everybody came to have a look round, and I suddenly thought, oh, we need to know what people thought, and I put out a notebook, and at the end I looked at it and loads of people had written in this book, "It's such a beautiful building," and that bottom picture is what it looks like on the outside. It's not really a building which you would normally say is beautiful, and I was really intrigued about what people meant by using this word, and it's something that I'm sort of really interested in exploring more. But my impression from talking to people was that it was about some of the qualities of the space which are sensual and which are not very commonly discussed. So we talk about light. We don't so much talk about light on materials, and I think that's very important with clay and timber. So you get this kind of richness, which is to do with the materials. And one of the things that we really don't talk about is acoustic, the qualities of sound, and so I was very interested in that. Anyway, I really thought, it was just at this time I was about to start this project, and I thought, right, we're going to build, obviously it's going to have a thatched roof, and this is the sort of buildings around where we were building in Norfolk, and it's going to be straw bale. And we're also trying to work very much within the kind of passive house discipline. Are you familiar with the passive house and what it? Who knows about passive house? Okay, that's great. So what I think is really important is it's a discipline which really is looking for how you can manage energy. It's about energy. It's not about other kinds of sustainability. And you can use it as the passive house planning package, which is the design tool to calculate the way that you're using energy in the building. It's a tool. It's a fantastic tool. So 10 years ago when we were doing retrofit projects, we were wondering if you put insulation here, what's going to happen and so on. And we sort of said to people, could we model it? And it was too expensive to model, and we had to sort of do it and then measure and see, how much energy you've saved. With PHPP, you can really explore if you do, if you've got a bigger window here and a smaller window there, how does that work? Or if you have more insulation at this end, or if you change the shape of the building, or you can really look at what the implications of that are. And it really is a very good informative tool as you're working through the process. So, but anyway, nonetheless, most passive house buildings use quite high, sort of, I would say, quite processed materials. And what we wanted to do was to look at using much rawer kind of more messy materials within a kind of passive house discipline, and to see if what we could achieve. So it was a rural site. So the first thing that was really nice was getting all these people together. So we were going to work with, and in the rather the same way we had done at Lordship Rec, with a primary frame, timber frame, and in this case it is a traditional Douglas fir pegged frame, which was designed and built by the timber frame company, who are Somerset based. I don't know, some of you may know them. Our airtightness consultant was Paul Jennings, who's the AECB airtightness guru. Barbara Jones on the left, our straw bale person. Fran Bradshaw is the tea maker, and Junko is one of the designers at Anthorn Architects who was working on it. So it's a very, very simple building. A primary Douglas fir frame, self-supporting straw bale walls. Some of them are really quite large panels of straw bale. The windows, in passive house windows, well, windows anyway are heavy and need to be in the right place. But once they're passive house windows, they're triple glazed and they're really, really heavy. And obviously all windows need to be plumb and level, but passive house windows really need to be plumb and level. Our approach here, our airtightness approach, was that the outside layer was going to be the airtight layer, and that didn't work very well. We'll go on more about that. And then clay plaster inside and lime render outside, and very simple services. So the work really went into the fabric, but mechanical ventilation, heat recovery, and solar thermal. And this is the timber frame. So one of the things that was really interesting was working with these people who are obviously, so working with straw bale people and the timber frame people together. One of the things about straw bale, if it's not load bearing, is that you need to compress it, within the frame. And so what we designed here was a primary frame which we could then use so the first floor was projected with a compression plate underneath it that we could use to compress the straw bales. It's not until the straw bales are compressed that the wall becomes rigid and substantial. And that was quite an interesting new system that Jim hadn't done before, and it or Barbara, and it worked really very well on site here. And we've had, very stable in terms of movement. So then at the same time, obviously, we were developing the PHPP model, and straw. Actually, we were really lucky because straw has quite different thermal properties depending on which way it's baled. So, and we didn't actually realise this when we were getting the bales. But as soon as it's sort of explained, it's pretty obvious that if the baling means that the tubes of straw are going horizontally, then you've got more possibility of conduction through the bales. But if they're going vertically, you've got a better insulation value, and that's to do with whether with the baling machine. In straw baling, it's really important that the tightness of the baling is actually the key thing. I mean, somebody said to me at Lordship Park, "Oh, is this the really traditional way people used to build?" And I was explaining, no, it's not. It's actually a really industrial product. A straw bale is an industrial product, and it depends on really tight baling. And this is very important with built bales when you're building with them, that you've got very tightly baled straw that you can really compress. This is also the sedge, which forms the ridge where you need material that bends much more easily. And both the thatch and the sedge were cut just within a mile of the project. This is the Somerset Douglas fir arriving on site. So they had made it all up, cut it and made it all up in the workshop, and then brought it in a big lorry. Here it is arriving with a massive crane. So this very traditional kind of frame making suddenly became very high tech. Arrived on a lorry, the crane went up, and it was really lovely to be part of this process of putting this frame up. And you can see the A trusses for the roof going in there. And then we had a raft foundation for various reasons. But we wanted to lift the straw up off the concrete, partly because of because of water damage, really, that it was important to get it up off. And we were here using foam glass, which again is a highly processed material, but incredibly effective in this particular location. And foam glass blocks are actually exactly the same width as straw bales, which is convenient. And there's the detail there. So in order to support the windows, you need timber actually in the centre of the straw. Because of the way the twine works, the timber supports have to be in the middle. So there are two twines on each bale, and you can cut notches in the middle. And so that determines the size of the support for the windows and doors. And then they have to be, strutted back onto the primary frame. So it's actually, people talk about straw bale, but it's actually, sort of pretty mix of carpentry and straw bale. And here are the first lot of bales arriving. What we found with the straw baling was that working with a couple of people who are really experienced and know what they're doing, you can then have, all your friends and family can come and join in, and it works really well. And as soon as the experts aren't there, suddenly everything falls to pieces. So I think that's a really special thing about straw baling, that it really lends itself to, community and projects and doing it together. Just all the sort of techniques of cutting bales and measuring them out according to a very carefully designed straw bale plan. pegging the bales together. So they're reinforced with hazel pegs down through about 3 bales. On the left, you can see the starter bars, really. And then this is doing the compression. So Barbara just uses car jacks, and you can see in this case, this is sort of halfway up the wall. So she's compressing against a kind of temporary frame. And I think later on you can see you compressing against the expanded first floor roof. The straps are then tightened, and then you can take the jacks away and then go up a bit further. Here we are doing the hazel stakes. Yeah, and here you can see so this top one here, you can see the sort of lattice of the compression plate, so that that's up to the first floor, and then these are the kind of complicated bits, the sort of stuffing in corners, and it's a highly technical matter that we had to carefully explain to us how to do it. It's taking the straps off. We've put little monitors in the straw bale. We don't really know enough about how straw bales really function, and particularly we don't know enough about moisture and how it passes through the wall. And the AECB has uses an Omnisense hygrotrac system, which is now being used across a range of different projects, so that we've got very comparable data. Not this is the only straw bale one that's being monitored at the moment, but across other projects. And so we put the monitors in various different places in the walls and on different orientations. And that's been giving us really useful information back about how it's performing. And this, so these are these rafters were filled with paper fibre, and that's a really nice, straight connection from wall to ceiling. With thatch, you have to have a fire board underneath the thatch. It's a sort of different way round, really, from how you normally think about fire. And so what was important here was to be able to use the thatch for its thermal value. It's got quite a sort of significant thermal value, and but it needs air needs to be able to pass through it. You don't want moisture just you don't want any kind of condensation in the roof. So these calcium silicate boards are vapor permeable, and what it means is that the whole roof construction with the insulated joists underneath and the thatch on top can form one incredibly thick sort of warm roof. And this is the thatcher's tools. The thatcher and the straw bale people were really interested to look at the different tools that they were using, all kind of made for their particular work. And I really thought it was interesting, before the straw was rendered, this kind of sort of shaggy building that came out. The sort of this is the kind of where going for really what is something which is really quite high performance, and these kind of shaggy materials. There are difficulties about doing that, which was kind of what we were trying to explore, and we did have difficulties. We haven't achieved passive house because the air tightness we haven't quite achieved the air tightness target, although very nearly. And that was partly because we had some tape failures externally, and it wasn't really very easy to identify that had happened. But these are the tapes that you would use, and in the Lordship project, we did the same system but internally. These are the tapes that you'd use where they're rendered into the plaster on the inside, or in this case on the outside. These are the triple glazed windows. And you can see again these sort of compression foam that are, so that all the opening details around the openings very kind of carefully detailed. And the layers are built up, so you've got insulation over the window, so the frame is actually in a kind of insulated rebate. And then you can see the sort of layers of render going on, the warm cell paper fibre being pumped in. This is just solar thermal on the south side, and a heat dump that was we'll see in a bit. And then a very simple MVHR system, which was designed by Green Building Store, very economical and works fantastically well. The monitoring, I mean, I suppose the thing that's been most significant is, so we've been living there for about 2 years, I guess, while building as well at the same time. And what you get is very, very even temperatures. So you can see the outside temperature going up and down. And as you go through so those monitors are as you go through the straw, so you can see it getting warmer towards the inside. Very stable temperatures. And the relative humidity you can see going right down in the summer, and then what's been very obvious here is the increased humidity you get during the winter from external rain. So where the temperature is low, that's not a problem because you don't get mould growth in straw below a certain temperature. But if it stays moist for a long time and the temperatures go up, that's when it could be a problem. And that's one of the things that we're really interested in seeing more about. Obviously some gardening. So the thing I think that I've been most really interested in just being there is just exploring a bit further these kind of qualities of the space. And it's one of the things that we found in some of the other projects that we've worked on where we're working using more natural materials is that you get a very different kind of quality of sort of quietness and but not the acoustic is not damped, but it's there's a sort of tranquility in the space, and that's something that I'm particularly interested in exploring further. And this project has just been, a fantastic opportunity really to see how that kind of is created and built up.
That was fantastic, Fran. That was real inspiration.
Have we got time for a few questions? Oh,
well,
no, okay.
Well, let's do one. Who's got a question? We haven't got many questions today. Oh, yes.
You mentioned that there was a difference between the thermal abilities of straw, where it's baled in different ways. Do you have any figures for that?
I do, but not off the top of my head. It's something, I think it's the difference between 0.38 and 0.42 or something like that, but I could be wrong. I'm very bad at remembering figures. But it's significant across the whole building, yeah.
Oh, one more at the back then. Go on.
The price? I can't tell you very much about...
Could you repeat the question?
Money. She's asking about money. I can't tell you. I can tell you that we've spent over £200,000, but I can't really tell you. It's not very meaningful, really, because we're doing a lot of the work ourselves. But what I can say about price is that I didn't go out to tender on anything. I chose the people we work with on the basis of having worked with them and wanting people who I knew were going to do a really good job. And every piece of work that was identified as a piece of work, the actual price was really reasonable. And I personally am very critical of the way that we run building projects in this country, with a very great focus on competition and lowest price. And to me, that being able to do this project in a way where you're just working with skilled people who you acknowledge have got skills and which you're prepared to pay for, but pay, you know, what is a reasonable amount, has been a real pleasure.
Thank you, Fran. Thank you.